My stepsister stole my fiancé and taunted me with postcards. Now they're broke and begging for a job at our family business. I, 28F, was engaged to my college boyfriend about 4 years ago. We had been together throughout college and got engaged at 23. A week before our wedding, he ran off with my stepsister. My ex-fiancé Greg, 28M, and my stepsister Melissa, 28F, eloped just before our big day, leaving only a letter behind. In the letter, Greg admitted to starting an affair with Melissa a few months after our engagement. He said he realized he couldn't marry me because it would be unfair to all of us, as he and Melissa were the ones truly in love. He believed the universe used me to bring him to his true love, and marrying me would deny us all a happy future. And that was it. They left, and I didn't see them again until recently. Greg's parents were so embarrassed by his actions that they covered all the wedding costs, so I didn't have to pay anything. That was the last time I interacted with his family. My own family was beyond embarrassed. They were furious. My father even considered hiring a private detective to track them down and bring them back for answers. Just to let you know, my father is actually my stepdad, but he has been my father ever since I was very young, and I have always called him dad because he is the only father I've ever known. My biological dad left shortly after I was born, and my mom never saw him again since he gave up his parental rights, and they were never married. My mom married my dad when I was 8. Melissa and I went to the same school, which is how our parents met. For some reason, Melissa took a dislike to me and treated me terribly for years. She was a true bully, constantly picking on me at school with her friends. The torment didn't stop at home. She would find ways to make me feel bad there too. Despite my complaints, our parents' attempts to discipline her weren't effective and she wasn't afraid of them, so she continued her bullying. My school years were a nightmare because of her and her friends. Much like my dad was absent, Melissa's mom wasn't around either, as she had passed away a few years after Melissa was born. Her mother died in the middle of the night from an epileptic episode, so whenever my mom tried to discipline her, Melissa would retort that she had no right because she wasn't her real mom. My father attempted to stop her bullying, but it was futile as she was fearless. They tried everything from scolding to gentle talks, but nothing curbed her behavior. Occasionally, they threatened to send her away, but she would boldly challenge them, knowing they were empty threats. In middle school, she was already troublesome, but by high school, her behavior worsened significantly. She picked up bad habits, becoming almost a juvenile delinquent. She started smoking and sneaking out to drink with her equally problematic friends. The turning point came when she was arrested with her friends one night for breaking into a house while drunk. This incident finally pushed our parents to take action. After weeks of pleading and protesting, they managed to send her to a rehabilitation center for troubled teens. Though she was unhappy, my father was adamant, insisting that if she wanted to stay with us and be part of the family, she had to improve. He couldn't allow her behavior to continue and disrupt everyone else as she was becoming a menace to society. Melissa left during our sophomore year and didn't return until after we had graduated. She enrolled in a school near the rehab center and stayed with her aunt. I didn't see her during those years because I had no interest in how my biggest bully was doing. My parents visited her every weekend and always asked if I wanted to join, but I always said no. Her friends ignored me after she left, which greatly improved my high school experience as I no longer had anyone constantly bullying me. Melissa continued her education in rehab and, when she returned, the first thing she did was apologize for everything she had put me through. She seemed much calmer, and I thought she had genuinely changed, so I forgave her. We were both heading off to college in a few months anyway, so it didn't seem to matter much. Once college started, we both moved out and only came back home for the holidays. During those times, she was much nicer to me, not in the sense of being friendly, but she simply ignored me instead of constantly picking on me as she used to. I had no reason to suspect anything even after getting engaged. They both acted as if nothing was happening. I never thought Greg might have feelings for Melissa. It never crossed my mind because Greg convincingly acted like he was in love with me, all while cheating on me with Melissa. She also pretended to be my friend, so I didn't find out the truth until it was too late and they had already left. My parents wanted to track them down and bring them back, but I convinced them to let it go because I just wanted to forget everything. It was already devastating that Greg and Melissa made a fool of me by running off a week before my wedding. I couldn't handle any more drama. I was deeply depressed and emotionally drained. For weeks, I buried myself in work and sleep to avoid confronting my heartbreak. My heart was shattered and I felt numb, but worse was yet to come. A couple of weeks after the day that should have been my wedding, I received a postcard from Melissa. She was in California, and included a bunch of photos of her and Greg looking incredibly happy. It was clear she was rubbing it in my face. She mentioned being sorry about the surprise before my wedding, but it was obvious she wasn't truly sorry. She just wanted to hurt me. That's when I realized she had never forgiven me for what happened years ago and blamed me for being sent away. She never wanted to be my friend. She used me to get to Greg. I had trusted her and ended up being a stepping stone in her malicious plan. I have to admit, for days after receiving that postcard, I couldn't sleep because I was losing my mind over it. It was a traumatic experience, and I needed months of therapy to heal and address my trust issues. The postcard wasn't a one-time thing. She sent me pictures of her and Greg for months. It only stopped after about a year because I never responded or engaged with her drama. Our parents were furious and cut all ties with her after the first postcard. They never reached out to her again, which was a significant loss for Melissa because she was poised to inherit her dad's business. She was a business major, partly because she wanted to join our father's company. However, after her betrayal, our father severed all ties with her and offered me the opportunity to work with him instead, feeling he needed to make amends in a significant way. Unlike her, I had a degree in history, which had nothing to do with business. Therefore, I needed to learn the ropes from scratch. My father assured me this wasn't an issue and was eager to teach me everything he knew so I could eventually take over the business. I agreed and started working under him to learn how to run the business, allowing him to retire and hand over the reins to me. After a few years of hard work, I was promoted last year, and my father retired. It was a fantastic feeling, having started from the bottom and learned everything I needed to know. Now, the business runs smoothly under my management, and my parents can enjoy their time together without worrying about it, thanks to my efforts. For a long time, I immersed myself in my work, which helped me move on from Greg. The combination of work and therapy allowed me to heal, and I no longer think about Greg or what he did. I never expected to hear from them again, let alone have them ask for my help. It would take a lot of nerve and a serious lack of common sense to ask for my help after betraying me, humiliating me and flaunting it. Yet Melissa and Greg must indeed lack sense, because that's exactly what they did a few days ago. It was the weekend, and around lunchtime, my doorbell rang frantically. Thinking it was the pizza I ordered, I didn't think much of it. To my shock, when I opened the door, instead of the delivery guy, there stood Melissa, looking extremely worried. Speechless, I waited for her to speak. It was clear she was there to ask for help. She looked destitute and her appearance betrayed her situation. Melissa, always impeccably dressed, now wore old faded clothes that looked long out of date. Her jeans were too short, and she appeared malnourished. I had already decided that whatever she asked, my answer would be no. She explained that she and Greg had been struggling ever since he lost his job a few months ago. Instead of job hunting, he had taken to drinking. Although she had been trying to find a job, her efforts were unsuccessful because she had left the workforce to handle household chores when she moved away with Greg. This gap in her resume made her a less attractive candidate for the job she applied for. She had heard from relatives that our father had retired and handed the business over to me, so she came to ask if I would hire Greg. Melissa admitted she hadn't approached our parents yet and came straight to me because she believed I had a kind heart and felt immense guilt over her past betrayal, confident I wouldn't turn her away. Now that she needed my help, her entitlement was so absurd that I laughed in her face and told her to apply elsewhere because I don't hire cheaters. Then I shut the door on her and walked back to the living room, ready to call the cops if she didn't leave soon. Fortunately, she left that day, but she hasn't stopped bothering me. After her visit, I called our parents to tell them about it. They said they'd heard from neighbors that Melissa was back in town without Greg but hadn't mentioned it. In our small town, news travels fast, so we quickly found out that Melissa had been in town for about a week, staying with an old high school friend. It was likely this friend who told her where I lived and that I had inherited the business she thought should have been hers. She was now really playing that card. A few days after visiting me, she went to our parents to complain about how heartless I was. She expected them to side with her, thinking she had the upper hand by playing the victim, but she was wrong. My father told her that the business was mine to run and I could make my own decisions. He wasn't going to interfere. My mother reminded her that she had betrayed me by running away with my fiancé after pretending to be my friend for years, so she deserved whatever was happening to her. Melissa had lost the right to ask any of us for help, especially after sending me postcards to torment me. She tried to defend herself, saying it was all in the past and she was a different person now, but my parents told her to leave, wanting nothing to do with her anymore. She threw a tantrum, accusing them of always favoring me and treating me like the golden child while ignoring her. My father responded that he had made more allowances for her behavior than any other parent would, but she insisted it still didn't matter. I had everything she was supposed to have, including the business I was flaunting. She claimed it wasn't her fault that Greg fell for her and chose her over me, Yet she felt she was being punished for it. She said the postcards she sent were sincere apologies, not attempts to torment me. Honestly, I haven't stopped thinking about her words since my father told me. It's true she was supposed to inherit the business and be in my position, but she lost that because of her own actions, not mine. I never asked my father to cut her out and give me the business, he did that on his own. It seems unfair for her to blame me. She also accused me of being the golden child, which isn't true, but I can see why she thinks that. She believes she was sent away because I complained about her bullying. It's a big deal for a parent to decide to send their child away, and I know it was hard on my father. But again, that's not my fault. If he hadn't intervened, Melissa might have ended up in even more trouble because of the path she was on. I also doubt her claim about the postcards being genuine apologies. She was probably just trying to cover up her intentions. I feel sorry for her because her husband turned out to be completely useless, and now she has to bail him out. She even came to me for help, which must have been incredibly hard for her. I regret how I treated her before. I have everything now, and she has nothing, so I can't help but pity her. That's just who I am. Besides, it's been a long time, and I'm tired of holding on to this grudge. But I also don't want to help her. I can offer my sympathy, but I don't want to hire them or give them money. I think it's enough that I even feel bad for her after everything she put me through, which most people wouldn't do. The only reason I feel bad for her now is that this business was supposed to be hers. Now that I'm in a position of power, I'm finally getting back at her. And it feels wrong. Maybe it's because of what she said about me being the golden child, or maybe it's just imposter syndrome, but I feel weird about this. So am I the AH for refusing to hire my ex-fiancé, who eloped with my stepsister, now that they're struggling with money and need help? Update. I was at a loss and the comments here only made things more confusing. Some of you thought I was right to turn them away, while others claimed I was always the favored child, causing Melissa to act out. This wasn't as helpful as I hoped. I decided to talk to my parents, as I've always sought their advice when facing problems. They assured me I had no reason to feel sorry for Melissa. They said everyone had gone above and beyond to help her become a better person, but if she wasn't willing to change, there was little we could do. My father mentioned he had intended to let her take over the business if she had behaved and been a good daughter, but she failed and embarrassed the family. Given that, she couldn't expect to take over or even be part of the family anymore. Talking to my parents made me feel much better. So, I'll try not to feel guilty about things I haven't done anymore. Update. About a week had passed since Melissa had shown up at my door and visited my parents. We hadn't heard from her, and I almost thought she had gone back to Greg until today when she appeared at my workplace and caused a scene. It was terrible because she just walked in, knowing the place well from childhood, and easily bypassed security. She stood in front of my office, shouting that I had stolen the business from her by pretending to be a perfect daughter to our parents and constantly sucking up to them to gain their approval. She accused me of falsely claiming she had bullied me throughout our childhood and convincing our father to send her to rehab just to solidify my position as the favored child. She declared that the business was supposed to be hers, but I was refusing to let her be a part of it because I was jealous Greg had chosen her over me, unlike our parents who had always favored me. She said I had lost my mind from being overlooked and had turned our parents against her. When I heard the commotion, I called security and went to see what was happening. I tried to tell her to shut up, but she continued for a few more minutes until security finally threw her out of the building. I called my dad before contacting the police to get his opinion, and he was furious. He told me to go ahead and call the cops. Luckily, when the police arrived, she was still lurking nearby, likely waiting for me to leave so she could confront me again or maybe even physically attack me. The police took her away and charged her with trespassing and disturbing the peace. They are minor charges, and she might get off with a fine or community service at worst, but it will go on her record, which is never good. I informed my dad about the charges and arrest, expecting him to be upset, but he just seemed exasperated and said he was tired of dealing with her craziness. I feel bad for him because it must be hard having a daughter like Melissa and being blamed for everything that goes wrong in her life, even though it's usually her own fault. Honestly, we have all been really patient. Update. So I think Melissa has gone back to California because we haven't heard from her in a few days, which is unusual since we expected her to lash out after her arrest. My dad asked around and found out that some people saw her heading towards the airport recently, so it seems she's left. Honestly, it's a huge relief that she's gone because I was really worried she might do something drastic to get our attention, which is never good. I have no idea what she plans to do about the situation with Greg now, as it seems unlikely she'll get help from anyone after this. I just hope she finds something to do and gets out of this mess, not out of kindness or compassion, But because if she doesn't, she'll just come back here with Greg and bother us again. And I don't want that. So I genuinely hope and pray that either she or Greg finds a job and can support themselves. For now at least, I won't have to hear from her for a couple of weeks, and I believe this nightmare is finally over. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.